Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here on this Wednesday morning, September 10th. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. We are less than 30 minutes away from the latest Falcon 9 launch from the West Coast. This is an important one for national security, space, and for the Space Development Agency, since this will carry the first batch of operational satellites for their low Earth orbit constellation designed to help augment and bolster the various capabilities of military branches stationed here and around the world. The formal name for this mission is the Tranche 1 Transport Layer B. There will be a lot of technical terms surrounding with this mission, so we'll try to decode things and use as little jargon as possible while also trying to help educate our audience about this mission as best we can. The 21 satellites on board today's Falcon 9 rocket were manufactured by York Space Systems based in Denver. Before we get too much further in our conversation, though, do want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor here in Florida for running the technical operations of the broadcast. Also, thanks to the 650 plus of you who are watching along with us live today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream. I'd like some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. I know it's still early for our West Coast audience, but appreciate all of you who are out in Southern California or Central California and beyond for being with us today. Also, thanks to our moderator in the live chat, Rick Donner. If you do see any of the other mods cruise on in throughout the course of the broadcast, be sure to give them a big old Spaceflight Now hello. This launch, along with all of our other broadcasts, are made possible in no small part by our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube. So thanks to folks like Cumulus Granatus, Annie Mecca, Jake, Sean Reprogel, sorry, Sean, if I just botched that, Charles Bass, and many others. Sulfur for Lunch, Jim Fowley, hello to you both. Hello to Space Coast rocket launches as well. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to our member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Last little bit of housekeeping. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings-on in the realm of space or spaceflight, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature to have your comment or query elevated for discussion. Not only will it be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll also be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. Taking a quick peek at the weather. Taking a live look at the latest satellite loop from the Goes West perspective. You can see there's a little bit of cloud cover that's been trailing over Vandenberg Space Force Base, but certainly nothing egregiously thick, so weather should not be a showstopper with today's launch from Vandenberg, as it unfortunately has been the case here in Florida for the last 2 days, hopefully not 3, but the weather outlook for the Nusantara Lima mission once again does not look great for tonight, but we'll talk more about that in our own dedicated broadcast on that mission later on this evening. Given this is a West Coast venture, our photography team is off for this launch, but They are busily preparing once again for coverage tonight, as well as for the upcoming launch of the NG-23 mission that fly also from Pad 40 here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. It's currently targeting liftoff on Sunday. So if you're not following the fellows, you can find them at their handles here on X. Adam is at ABurnNYC. Michael Kane is at MD Kane Jr. John Pisani at John Pisani Photo. Be sure to follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. You're on X, Blue Sky, Threads, and Facebook. Here's a look at the Falcon 9 rocket that is getting ready to launch today's mission, adorned with the mission patch on the payload fairings. Do want to draw your attention to the gray band around the second stage as well. That's present when there is a particularly long coast phase of the mission, and they're trying to keep the propellant at the correct temperature. During a pre-launch briefing, we were told by Space Development Agency officials that the satellites will deploy with some group of minutes in between each deployment sequence. So it'll take the better part of an hour for all 21 satellites to be jettisoned from the Falcon 9 upper stage. Getting a brief rundown of our countdown timeline for today. We'll step quickly through the milestones that we've already passed and get you caught up to where SpaceX is right now in the count. T-minus 38 minutes is when they made the call on the start of prop load, which began at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. Liquid oxygen began flowing on board the rocket's first stage at this point in the count as well. T-minus 30 minutes, they began to load a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage. Same is true in the second stage just a few minutes ago. That helium will be used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Most recently, just about a minute ago, is when second stage RP-1 loading wrapped up. Coming up next will be the strong back chill down process. We won't see this go around, but the feed lines there at the pad are thermally conditioned prior to loading second stage liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage. Had we eyes on the Falcon 9 at this point in the count, we would see the so-called big vent setting up for LOX to start flowing at the 16-minute mark. Moving right along, T-minus 7 minutes is when the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines begins. SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. T-minus 6 minutes is when the first stage kerosene tank is full. And at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strong back. That's when the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, that'll recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. And here at Vandenberg, it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. 2 minutes before takeoff, same will be true on the second stage. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket will be fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will then give their final go for launch call at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, targeting that at 7:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 a.m. Eastern, 14:12 UTC, just shy of 20 minutes from now. Time now T minus 18 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. Given the weather scrubs that SpaceX has unfortunately been running into as of late, the last Falcon 9 flight we saw was another Vandenberg mission. Here's where our currently stands, looking at the Falcon 9 or Falcon flights year over year. SpaceX is up to 112 so far in 2025, has the stated goal of reaching 170, but with each launch delay from weather and given the fact that we're still very much in the heart of hurricane season, even though thankfully there's not a tropical disturbance in the 7-day outlook, things may continue to be slow from a weather front. So I think 170 may be out of the picture at this point in the year. We'll see where they ultimately end up, though, when all is done and dusted. Here are the mission patches for today's flight of the Falcon 9. You see the Tranche 1 symbol from the Space Development Agency on the left, SpaceX's mission patch on the right, noting that this is the the Tranche 1 Transport Layer B mission. As part of the national security space launch contract that was awarded over the course of about 5 order years, various missions were doled out between both SpaceX with its Falcon rockets as well as to ULA with its Vulcan rockets. A good number of these missions for the Space Development Agency were awarded to SpaceX. This is, even though it's called Mission B, this is the first batch of satellites heading into the Tranche 1 constellation for the SDA. The missions were initially assigned in alphabetical order, so there was Mission A, then B, C, D, and so forth. However, just because of the readiness and availability of particular batches of satellites within the tranche, that determines which mission ultimately goes where as far as the launch order. So as it played out, first up to bat will be the T1TL-B mission with 21 satellites from York Space Systems. Here's a look at the satellites themselves as shared by York Space. This photo on the left was taken back in April of 2025 as those satellites were completed and getting ready for their mission now this year in September. And on the right is a photo of those satellites encapsulated inside the payload fairings for the Falcon 9 rocket with the T1 transport layer logo. Globe snatched by what I have to imagine are supposed to represent bald eagle claws. SDA dog tags at the bottom. This is a photo that was taken last month. This was when the Secretary of the Air Force, Troy Mank, visited these satellites alongside U.S. Senator Kevin Kramer of North Dakota. This is taken back on August 28th. Tranche 1 will consist of total about 154 satellites, with 126 of them being these transport layer satellites. First 21 up to bat, of course, in just about 14 minutes from now. getting a little bit of the nomenclature out of the way, a tranche, as defined by the Space Development Agency, you can think of a tranche as the generation of satellites or the iteration of those. So you may recall back in 2023 and 2024, there were a few launches that carried what were called the Tranche 0 satellites. These were demonstration sats from a variety of companies, including York Space Systems and SpaceX. These were demonstration sats to both learn more about the production of the future versions of the satellites, to get a little bit more technical know-how from both a hardware and software perspective, and get things on a better footing. So now that they're into the production of these fully operational satellites as part of Tranche 1, they're more robust and can operate at a higher level with lower latency and things like that. Meanwhile, the layer in the mission title of Tranche 1, Transport Layer, that's defined as the basically the functionality of any particular section of the Tranche 1 piece of the constellation, if that makes sense. So this transport layer, for instance, are a series of communication satellites that'll connect to one another via optical communications or laser links. Sort of similar in concept to how the Starlink satellites connect, but obviously these serve a national security function and are designed with more protections in mind for sensitive communications, both in between the satellites themselves as well as down to the ground in support of various military apparatus around the world. Now, T minus 9 minutes, 44 seconds and counting. The goal for the operational deployment of the Tranche 1 piece of the constellation is to have a roughly 1 month launch cadence. So next up to bat will be another mission aboard another Falcon 9 rocket, also from Vandenberg. All these satellites are going to be heading into a near polar low Earth orbit, and Lockheed Martin's satellites are next up to bat. Contracts for the T1TL piece of the Space Development Agency's satellite constellation, which will ultimately consist of hundreds, if not in excess of 1,000 satellites in low Earth orbit. Satellites within this piece are coming from York Space Systems, Lockheed Martin, as well as Northrop Grumman. Each of those three companies are developing 42 satellites apiece. Now, T minus 7 minutes, 15 seconds, and counting. Given this is a customer mission, typically SpaceX would have begun broadcasting live views of the Falcon 9 rocket at this point in time, or certainly before this point in time. However, for whatever reason, SpaceX appears to be having some kind of issue with their stream. So we will bring those views into you just as soon as they are available. But right now, that is not the case. Again, we're keeping very close tabs on SpaceX and the start of their stream and when they make the live images of the Falcon 9 rocket available. Just about 6 minutes to go. About a minute or so ago is when the engine chill of the 9 Merlin engines got underway, coming up to the conclusion of RP1 loading on the Falcon 9 first stage booster. Again, with customer missions, SpaceX typically will start their broadcast closer to the T minus 10 minute mark. And that was the expected plan today. It does look like they've got their slate up now, so we'll go ahead and bring you those views momentarily. Four and a half minutes on the clock now. The tank should be pressurizing for the retraction of the strong back.
Both the range and vehicle are currently green, and we are on track for an on-time liftoff at 7:12 a.m. Pacific Time. Weather continues to look good for today's launch out of California, with a 0% possibility of violation. If needed, a backup opportunity is available tomorrow, starting at 7:04 a.m. Pacific Time. As a note,
And that's a good update on the weather there. That things are moving forward as expected, and weather will not be a showstopper. As we were told yesterday during a pre-launch briefing, the Falcon 9 will not be or SpaceX will not be showing upper stage views of the Falcon 9 following stage separation. So the broadcast will end shortly after the first stage booster. Tail number B1093 touches down on the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. First stage liquid oxygen load has wrapped up. Coming up at about T-minus 2 minutes is when second stage lock load will be complete. B1093, the booster launching today, flying for its 6th time. Its previous 5 missions were all in support of SpaceX's Starlink constellation. Two minutes and counting.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
Good confirmation of Stage 2 LOX load. Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. The venting you're seeing there are the ground gas closeouts, the release of liquid oxygen from the feed lines there.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
As you just
With that good call, we are now waiting for the SpaceX launch director to give their final call that they are go for launch.
This is the mission director. Go for launch.
And with that good go for launch call, we're going to step back on our commentary, listen in to the final 30 seconds, and we'll be back with you on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go SDA.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressure nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Slick 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. In case you're just joining us, this is the Space Development Agency's Tranche 1 mission, and we had an on-time liftoff today at 7:12 a.m.
Power and
Pacific time.
telemetry nominal.
Coming up next, the vehicle will be passing through max Q, which is the point in the mission profile where the vehicle
Vehicle is supersonic.
experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
Falcon 9 has now passed through the period of max Q, when the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic stress. Coming up next, we'll have several events happening in quick succession, starting with MECO, followed by Stage Sept and SES-1. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines will shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, which is where the first stage separates from the second stage. Following this, the MVAC engine on the second stage will light, which is called out as SES 1, or second engine start 1. This engine burn, lasting several minutes, will propel the second stage and the payload to orbit. In addition to these major events, the fairing halves will separate about 30 seconds after SES-1. As a reminder, we will not have any Falcon 9 second stage or payload views at the request of our customer. We're about 10 seconds away from MECO now.
Main engine cut off. Stage separation confirmed. MVAC startup.
And as you just heard and saw, that series of back-to-back callouts there, which again were MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. Coming up shortly, we should hear a callout for fairing separation, but as a reminder, we will not be showing it on screen. Both payload fairing halves supporting today's mission are also flight-proven, with both halves flying for their third time.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there you just heard that confirmation. We will be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves again today once they fall back to Earth with our recovery vessel, Go Beyond.
And a good start to the mission, coming up on the 4th minute in flight. Coming up next will be the start of the first stage entry burn, which will call upon 3 out of the 9 Merlin engines on the Falcon 9 first stage booster. That's set to begin at about T plus 6 minutes and 24 seconds, with that burn lasting about 23 seconds in duration. About 5.5 minutes into the mission, coming up on that entry burn, less than a minute away from now. As we're approaching the start of the entry burn, want to welcome a new channel member, Gordon Henderson, joining us with membership at the mission specialist level. Also, thanks to channel member Chuck Close for a $25 super chat. Thank you, Chuck.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
And there's that call out for the entry burn startup of the Falcon 9 first stage. This burn is set to last about 26 seconds, and again, is slowing down the vehicle in preparation for its final burn and landing.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
With the conclusion of the entry burn, that sets the stage for the landing burn. A single engine burn cushioning the touchdown of the booster on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. If successful today, this will be the 150th good landing for that particular drone ship, the 502nd successful recovery for SpaceX.
Coming up next, we'll have the landing
Stage
burn
1 transonic.
of the first stage. The landing burn is the final burn of the Falcon 9 booster used to reduce the remaining speed of the vehicle for a gentle and precise landing on our drone ship. Of course, I still love you.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
We should hear that call out for the first stage landing burn moments from now.
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And we heard the call out for landing burn start on the Falcon 9 first stage. This is the final burn that this booster will see before landing.
And back shutdown.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And another
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
and another successful landing of our Falcon 9 rocket, the 6th launch and landing for this first stage. As a reminder, we will not be showing any Stage 2 or deployment views at the request of our
Nominal
customer.
orbit insertion.
As you just heard, a good call out there for Stage 2's nominal orbit insertion. And with that, and the successful landing of our Falcon 9 booster, we will be bringing our webcast to a close. We'd like to thank the Space Development Agency for entrusting us with today's mission, and we'd also like to thank the Range and the FAA for their support. If you're interested in more launch coverage, be sure to check spacex.com/launches and follow on X for the most up-to-date information. When you're there, check out our new departure board, featuring our upcoming launches with details such as mission name, launch and landing site, and liftoff time. Thanks.
And with a good touchdown of the booster on the drone ship, we're going to go ahead and begin to wind down our coverage as well. Let's go ahead to our mission stats now as they currently stand. The touchdown that we just saw marked the end of flight number 6 for Falcon Booster 1093. This was SpaceX's 530th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 113th of 2025. This was SpaceX's 160th launch within the last 365 days. The 147th orbital flight for SpaceX from Slick 4 East, and the 215th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's where the bar chart currently stands. Moving right along to some recovery stats. That was the 150th landing of a booster on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. Marking the 408th drone ship landing for SpaceX and the 502nd overall good booster landing. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 42nd orbital launch from California, the 119th from U.S. soil, the 131st from U.S. Rocket Company, and the 207th orbital launch around the world. There have been 5 orbital mishaps so far. Here is where our pie chart currently stands. U.S. still leading the pack with 131, China with 53 missions on the year. And that'll go ahead and do it for our coverage of this mission today. Be sure to join us back here later tonight, where, weather permitting, SpaceX will finally be able to launch the Nusantara Lima satellite on behalf of the Indonesian company PSN. We'll have live coverage beginning about an hour prior to liftoff. Launch currently scheduled for 8 p.m. Eastern, Quad 0 UTC for those joining around the world. Of course, given the weather, that launch time could change, so keep tabs on our YouTube channel as well as our social media for any further updates to that mission timeline. I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Big thanks to moderator Rick Donner for holding it down in the live chat. Also to Mark Otto for being with us. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. We hope you have a good and productive rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you right back here tonight for what will hopefully be the launch of the Nusantara Lima satellite. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. We will see you next time, folks, and until then, bye-bye.